What's up guys, Michał Tech Test Tutorials. Now it's been a long time since I've created a video, but I'm finally ready to show you my new FreeNAS upgrade. So in this beautiful fractal design case, we will have 8 2TB drive, 16 TB of storage. We are going to use just a dual core i3 and 24 GB of RAM. But on top of this, we will build a FreeNAS that will also contain additional SATA controller. So I will show you how to add a SATA controller to the system like this, so you could increase easily amount of SATA drives you are able to install. I will show you how to configure AirSync, snapshots, virtual machines with just dual-core hyper-threaded CPU. So I really hope this is going to be an interesting video. Plus, also, since it contains 8 drives and additional Alien external SATA controller, the name of this build is going to be NAStromo. Let's watch it! What's up guys, Michał here again. I acknowledge the intro was a little bit over the top, but what can you tell? Since all the videos now for the smaller creators like sub 1000 subs are demonetized, well, you can do anything with the music. And I decided to have a little fun. So sorry for that. Happy that you stick to this moment, and let's start with the system overview. So I would like to go through specs for a small moment. As I said, we are using here Core i3. It's a Haswell, so it is 4160 at 3.6 GHz. So it's the cheapest possible dual core processor with relatively high clock speed I could get. That paired with 24 GB of RAM should be enough for 16 TB of storage. How I'm going to divide that storage, it's yet to be revealed, but it should be enough regardless of what I'm going to do, and that will include also 2 virtual machines. So I would like to have virtual Windows 10, plus I would like to have a Debian GNOME, and reason why that's going to be Debian and not other operating system, not other flavor of Linux, I will reveal also, but let's not do it now. So as you can see, it's like roughly 10 GB of RAM that I'm going to cut out. So should be enough. The RAM situation is kind of okay there. So we've got this, and this is all, as I said, on a Haswell board. And you could see probably something strange during this intro, that this motherboard has some features that are probably not most needed for a NAS system, like amp audio and support for SLI and that stuff. Guys, it's just I had this gaming mobile, and it actually had all the features I needed aside from those, so I went with it. You don't need to get a motherboard like that, so it's always fun. It's always nice to have like Japan capacitors, so you won't have any leaks, so decent caps are always good to have. It's nice to have that M2 drive, the ability to install that M2 drive for basically for cache. I'm not installing this right now, although I am planning to, so there will be an update video to that. At the moment, I'm just using all 6 SATA ports that are available, so this will give me 6 drive, plus I'm going to use this one. This is a ASMedia additional ASM 1061 controller, and it's got, you can see it's got 4 ports, but actually there are some jumpers and you can only configure 2 of them. I've got the jumpers as it's set on the screen. I've got the jumpers to enable only the internal SATA ports. It's very, very basic, very, very easy. Just will give you 2 additional SATA ports for your mobile. It's going to be completely transparent. No issues with drive performance, speed under FreeNAS. One thing to consider, depending on how you are going to set up your drives, if you are going to build, let me show you this. If you go to storage, and if you are going to build at least 2 pools or even more, just don't put all these drives, just know exactly which drive, if you go to storage and view disk, which of your drive is connected where. Because if you set it up like you have you use 4 drives in a pool, let's say, and 2 of those drives are connected to this controller and the other to the motherboard, obviously, then you can, then if the controller will fail and you got write Z with 1 redundant drive, then you are basically screwed. So yeah, it's okay to install additional controller, but be mindful of what you are doing. Probably you don't want to, in case of a failure of a controller, you still want to have some headroom in terms of how many drives you can lose from the pool. So the way I've set this up eventually, or I am going to set it up eventually, is I will use 2 pools, 2 ZFS pools. Each one of them is going to be 4 drives, and that's gonna be write Z2, which is going to give me, as you can see, roughly 3.3 terabytes. Why? Well, I've got about 2 terabytes of free space, of space that I need to occupy with the data, of course, and that's going to grow. But this will give me ability to first test the way how you can copy Z volumes, so basically the drives for the virtual machines. Between the pools, there is a command that allows you to simply copy the drives for virtual machines between the pools, and also you can very easily mirror the data across these 2 pools. What's this give you? It's like ultimate testing environment. So you can have your data that you are going to keep. You can lose 2 drives. On top of that, you will have snapshots enabled, so any changes done with this data, for example, you will change some data, you will delete something, you'd like to go back So, well, I screwed up. I don't want to do this actually. Okay, let's use, for example, previous version on the Windows. Okay, I don't have to set it up on this account for this user, or I didn't set this up for myself. So you can go to the snapshot. You can recall the snapshot, and bam, all the changes are undone. So snapshots are very cool, but these are not backups actually. So the way I am going to set this up is I'm going to use AirSync. So I will copy all the data across two pools. If I have to do something with one of those pools, like destroy it, detach all the drives, I can simply quickly move the data to the second pool, maybe change all the drives at once, and build this pool again. And it's basically like having two FreeNAS instances in one, but ran by one computer. So that's the configuration I'm going to go. I could use all these drives in one pool and do it externally, but since all the data that I'm going to copy it's about 2 terabytes, so I will have like 1.5 terabytes of storage free, because you have a little bit compression here going on, and most of these data are going to compress at least to some extent. So I will have enough. 1.5 terabytes, it's like a year or two for me, so I will probably upgrade some of these drives in this lifespan, but this will give me this option so I don't have to move the data outside. This is not like having completely two different systems. Obviously, if you're going to have a CPU failure, if the motherboard will fail, PSU or something like that, well, you will have to shut it down. The data will probably going to be intact, so you will be able to import this data to the new drive, to the new FreeNAS installation or something like that. But yes, you will have downtime. My problem is I don't have that much space where I live, so it kind of makes sense to have two pools for as long as I have space for all the data, if that makes any sense for you. And it's designed, built in this beautiful fractal design case. Two reasons. One is it's not that big if you consider everything that is installed there. Second, it's very good isolated for noise and dust. You just install two fans in the front, which will give you decent airflow through all of these drives. One exhaust fan, so the pressure is positive. You've got filters before all this fan. That's all fans. That's all good. You got enough space, and you've got this sound dampening material all around. So even if these drives are a little bit noisier, you are probably good too. So I went with WD Enterprise Storage 2 terabyte drives, but I am thinking about changing them for like 4 terabytes drives. And I still have one stick of RAM that I could eat to have this all populated, because I've done this. It's 3 sticks, 8 gigabytes, so I can go with 32 setup and eat even more storage. Maybe then I will change this. This system is going to definitely give me some options. In terms of CPU, yes, it's dual core, but the hyper-threading, it's seen by FreeNAS like all 4 cores. So you can assign also hyper-threaded cores to a virtual machine. So you can. I'm going to run only 2 virtual machines, Windows and Linux at the same time. The rest is going to be available for FreeNAS, so it could run fast. And as I've tested this, 2 virtual machines plus everything installed as it is works perfectly. When I will copy the data, I will show you the stats, because actually you can see really fine what is going on here. You can see cache hit ratio, how the data are cached, so you can see everything. You can see how which drive exactly is doing what at the moment. You can go with ZFS and you can see was it a ZFS or storage? Give me a second. Disks. So you can see each individual disk, whether it's reading, writing data, you know, you see everything. This stuff is insane. So you can perfectly monitor the things that are going. The version I am using at the moment, the most stable is 11.1 update 5. So you can go and update this anytime this version is stable. At the moment works perfectly, everything works. I actually, aside of few problems that I had with virtual machines, that I am going to tell you about when I will do the segment about virtual machines. Aside from that, it's perfectly stable, no issues. It's not like the Coral or, my God, that was terrible. This works perfectly. I can assure you that. So these are the specs. This is how and why I've set this up. One thing also, 6 drives plus 2 drives, that's 8. What am I booting from? As always, I connected here to USB header, small USB stick, installed FreeNAS there. So actually, if you go, probably you could see that in the footage from the intro, but if you go to view disks, you can see that it's just a thumb drive, 16 gigabyte thumb drive. I guess it's like 2.5 occupied. The reason why I didn't done this with a DOM or something like that, I didn't want obviously to occupy SATA port because I need this for the drives. And if you are going to buy yourself a mobile with like 10 or 20 SATA drives, that's cool. Glad you had money because these are actually pricey. So to buy just a simple stick, USB stick, connect this to this header, install this inside the case, and you've got one SATA port free, and maybe you can connect a 4 terabyte drive. And what this FreeNAS is doing is actually when you are booting the system, it reads whole contents of this USB stick, and it's kept in RAM, so not a big deal. Plus, if you are still worried what is going on, what is happening, you can do basically. I will try to find this. Just give me a second. Here you do the updates. You can do the updates, but you can also boot. You can see the boot situation, what is used, the status of volume. So there's that, but you can also, just give me a second, you can create a whole complete backup of this system. So yeah, save config, upload config, you can back up the complete system, settings, all that, move this, install FreeNAS on the other. You can create for the money, for the $5 you buy 2 sticks. You can save configuration, copy to another one. It will work perfectly, so no problem there. So don't bother buying DOMs and don't occupy your SATA port or something like that. You will be perfectly good to go. Just don't stick this thumb drive rear of the case or to the front or anywhere outside. I will show you how I have installed this. Inside, do it inside so it won't get detached during operation or broken or something like that, and you will be perfectly fine. So that's the third segment. That's the my hardware choices, configuration, and that kind of thing. So that's the first segment. Now, second segment, we are going to talk a little bit about configuration and how I have done this. I have to assume that you've got your FreeNAS already booted, so you were able to put all the components together and to install it. If that was a bit above your head, then I am sorry. Maybe leave a comment, and probably I figured most of you know how to do this stuff. If not, I will create separate video if enough people is interested. But for now, I'm going to assume that you know how to download the ISO, how to install this to a working machine and have it up and running. One thing, you always want to make sure that even if your IP is set up through a DHCP server, that your FreeNAS is always going to get the desired IP. You can actually achieve that in multiple ways. If your router just seems to be randomly throwing IP on all of the devices, well, then you might consider static IP address. I always like to use DHCP because I use something that is called MikroTik routers. So you can basically tell that this MAC address should always get this IP and just give you opportunity, or you are able to change the IP address from a router. If for some reason I would like to change my FreeNAS IP address, I can just set it up and it will get other IP address, static IP. Basically, you need to go to the device to do that. So that's the advantage of DHCP. Again, if your router doesn't allow maybe use static IP address, that is going to be easy to remember. Mine is perfectly easy to remember, so it stays here. Now, the first thing you are going to do is you are going to create a user. Basically, just each one. Don't mess with the built-in users. Just add it to a grub. Finished. So that user is going to be used for datasets, permissions. Probably if you are going to SSH, you are going to use root or that kind of user. It also depends how you are going to set this up, but probably for the management stuff, for logging in, you are going to use root, but for the permission and shares, that not desired situation. So you want to go and create a user like so. You just that's the grabs. You just go here, eat user, create a name, you're done. So that's the first thing. Actually, no. Actually, the first thing I will show you what should be. If you go to the drives, you've got this thumb drive that I've shown you, and probably you have installed this on the thumb drive. And as I said, if you look here closely, it say enable smart. What's smart? It's just it's something that predicts whether the drive is going to fail or is it failing. Flash drives, thumb drives are not built to support this. So you just want to disable. So basically take this off. Don't enable smart for this drive, because if you will have smart enabled on your thumb drive, well, FreeNAS will give you here a red warning that it was unable to start to start smart service. So it won't boot because if you go here to services, you've got smart. You can show. Let's see the services. And you can see that smart is running. If you will have this enabled for a thumb drive, it won't be the case, so it won't be running. So one of the first thing, if you go there, just don't panic that one of your drive is dead. It's probably the thumb drive. DOMs, that's the advantage of the DOMs. Most of them can fake smart, and BIOS won't notice, and FreeNAS also won't notice that this drive really doesn't support that. But the thumb drive connected via USB, you just have to disable this. So that's one of the first thing you should do. Then you can go basically here, system, and perform update. Just use the stable one. Check for the availability. Automatically check for updates. It's up to you whether you want to do this or not. Probably leave the beta testing to other people, although if it's stable it should be already tested, but it's up to you. What I can tell you right now, that this 11.5 update files just work fine. So if you are not going to go crazy with some hardware, probably you could even use auto updates. At the moment, we'll see, but basically it's better to manually perform the updates. Now let's start with some fun, and let's actually go and create a pool. And what the pool is in ZFS, it's actually it's like a RAID. Basically you take a bunch of drives and combine them in a one volume that you are able to use for data sets. Which about the data sets, you can think like SQL databases for files. So these files are stored in a data set on a pool. So drives are combined in a pool, and then there is a data set on top of that, like the database engine, and you can basically feed the data to it. It sounds complicated, but that's the easiest way I can think of to tell how this actually works. So let's go to the volume manager and let's create the pool. I've got already the second. It's going to be the first and the second. The first is going to be for data, the second for backup, although you can use it either way. As I said, I'm going to use tuples. So let's create this one. It's that easy. It will see how many drives are left. I've got 4 drives left at the moment. If you drag this, it will show you what kind of drives, which precisely you are going to use, and what kind of RAID-Z strip or whatever you are going to use. If you are going to use, for example, if you are going to build cache pool, you can use this. That's for SSD, for cache. RAID-Z, RAID-Z2, it's basically 2 drives can fail in this configuration. Mirror, 1 drive can fail. Stripe, it's like all the possible RAIDs that you can imagine. You can go to manual and set this all manually if you so desire. I don't know. I think you are perfectly fine like that. So let's create one first. Encryption, no. We are not going to extend any volume. We are just creating the new one. All the drives, drive Z, eat volume. Let's wait a second. Actually, I have to admit I'm rendering this video. So the first part that you have seen at the moment, plus I'm capturing the screen with OBS, plus I am doing that, so probably it's enough for my iMac, but it's okay. Okay, so we've got the first volume created, and now what we are going to do is we are going to change permissions, because we are going to choose the user that I've created, and we are going to set up the rights. So this user has the rights to store the data on this pool. You can do it a little bit later, but then you have to choose that the rights are applied already to the data set that you've created. So it's best to create the pool first and then second to create the data set, which we are going to do right now. As I said, how the data set is used. This is my data set for data. So I've got one for backup and this one is going to be for data. So like so. So that's created. Now we've got two pools that are roughly the same size. These are already created drives for virtual machines. These are created, it says first on the bottom and second up there. It's as you create them. If I was to destroy the second, then the first become first on the list and the second will go below. It's just the way it's shown. And if you SSH to your FreeNAS and you would like to see, you can see it's mounted right out the gate. So I've created the first pool and the data set, and it's all there, just like that. Here are some ISOs and things like that. Works perfectly. So it's always nice to have SSH session connected, even if you are working with the GUI. Don't be afraid of SSH. Some commands you will be only able to perform via SSH. Like as I said, if you are going to move zvols, because on top of the data set you can create a small drive that is going to be a volume for your virtual machine. And for example, if you would like to move this zvol between the data sets, so if I would like to copy this here to here, only way is via SSH, via command. It's actually easy command. It's easier to show, to give somebody a command. I will try to leave them in video description, than to show in a video what to click. So don't be afraid about SSH. What is cool about FreeNAS is actually comes with Midnight Commander installed. So as soon as you will SSH, you can run MC Midnight Commander. And if you have any background in, for example, Norton Commander or these old days when DOS was used, you will feel perfectly like home. You've got all the mounted pools. You can see here in MNT folder. Let's say it's a folder, and you could basically copy the data and do whatever you want. The bigger amount of data, we are usually using AirSync, which is a service that can be run in the background by the FreeNAS. So I will show this a little bit later, but first thing first, now we should create a share. And a share is actually the way to present the data for other devices in your network, like your operating system or maybe virtual machines inside of your FreeNAS. So we go here. I'm going to create SMB, even though I'm using Mac at the moment. It's perfectly fine. Windows SMB, it's going to work. We are going to just create that. Just hit advance. You will be asked what you are going to share. As I said, you can share either of this pool. I don't recommend sharing backup because backup should remain intact, but I'm going to share first data. What we have here? Apply default permissions. No, we don't want that. Just like that. We've already set the permissions on the data set. So the user that we've created, for me it was this Michał user, should be now able, you could see here that it was set up, should be now able to access the data. You can go to services and check if your SMB is running. It should start on boot. That's perfectly normal here. Now we are going to go and connect to this server. That's this one right here. So we are gonna hit connect. Okay, and that's not this user. Let's type a password really quick. Now we are going to connect, and bam, it's perfect. Okay, so we've got this drive connected, and we could actually we could actually start copying the data from like this computer or something like that. But before we do this, actually, as I said, I'm going to configure AirSync. In order to set up AirSync, which is a synchronization tool, so you could synchronize data between different data sets, you just need two things. You need AirSync module, which, just a second, you go to AirSync modules, like so. So you have services, AirSync, and you can configure module. Each view AirSync modules we are going to view because mine is already created. And you can either name, which is whatever. And in here you create path to at least one, either your destination or source. You can set up read and write. Whether this is destination or source, this is going to be set up elsewhere. I will show you. So you can give write or read protection, whether you are going to pull the data or you are going to push the data. So just basically set up a module, name, destination, and for me this is going to be normally it's going to be the second, because I am going to push the data to this module, but right now I'm going to set it up upside down because I need to copy the data from my backup. So right now it's first because I will be pushing the data here. So you set up this module like so, AirSync module updated. And then you go to tasks, and in tasks you have AirSync tasks. And here you create what you are going to do with this module. So I am going to set up my second backup data, which you choose here from the mount point. And I am going to connect this module with this user to this host with this user. That's the AirSync module. That's the name of this module, and I'm going to push the data. You can do this periodically, like any cron job, every day, every month, week, whatever you desire. And you click OK. Now, if you would like to see whether this is working or not, this will depend on whether you have AirSync service started, whether you have permissions to the data sets you are going to use, whether this user is set up as a user that can use AirSync, and whether the destination source are set up properly. Now, then you can click on this AirSync tasks, and you get here run now. You can start this. There will pop up this question. It's very, very important that this have to pop up. If it won't, you have to refresh page. I don't know why. Sometimes it happens on Mac, in Chrome. Sometimes it happens on Windows. Most often Chrome in Windows 10. But it happened to me on Fedora client also. So not sure what's that. If it won't come up after you click this, you just need to refresh the page and you are basically good to go. Now, would you like to run this AirSync job? Yes, please. AirSync process started. It doesn't really mean that it's successful. It's just initiated. Whether it is successful or not, you just have to go to your mount point and check whether the data is being copied or not. So the data will show up basically right at the gate. As soon as you hit start, the drives will start functioning, and the AirSync module will push the data across these two data sets. Actually, to be able to see the logs, you have to set up an external machine with SQL Server. So these logs, as far as I know in FreeNAS, if you know that better, please leave a comment. But as far as I know, you cannot see logs from inside of FreeNAS. They can basically only be sent outside. So that's the way you can set up AirSync to copy the data between. Someone asked me in a comment if it's possible to copy the data to the external drive, and yes, you can connect a drive via USB. Will be mounted like the data set. You will see your USB drive as a mount point, and you can set up an AirSync module to copy the data to this external drive, and you will be limited only by whether FreeNAS support your USB-free drive or not. Actually, AirSync can check what kind of data are already there, and it will copy only the differences between the source and destination. So I have lived a very long time when I had USB 2 enclosure with external drive, and I've copied the data to this external drive with AirSync, but it copied only the differences between the source and destination. So actually, even if I dumped some video files over the night, in just a few minutes the data was copied, and that was no problem. So yes, just simply plug your drive during the boot. It will be recognized. I think also sometimes it's mounted if you connect this to the running instance of FreeNAS, but at the moment I'm not perfectly sure if it will be mounted or whether you need to do this manually. But if you connect this drive on a boot, no problem, it will show up in MNT, and you will be perfectly able to use AirSync to copy the data to this destination, no problem. So basically, right at the gate, you can see the data is being copied. Just a random installation folder. But the data is being copied, and yeah, that's perfectly operational. Now, if we go to reporting, we can see the CPU temperature. It starts to rise because it's actually got stuff to do. If we go to drives, we can see a lot of writing done at the moment. Some reading because the second pool is being read and the first is being written to. So just like so, you can see the data going across. We should see a little bit of memory utilization. Yeah, it's ramping up just here. We will see ZFS, arc size. Yes, that's your cache. So it basically starts to grow. If you get any SSD, it's L2 arc. As I said, you could eat SSD drives to make also use of SSD storage in order to make the transfer from external locations faster. At the moment, I don't have SSD attached, but maybe in the future. And actually, yeah, as I told you, everything is here. So that was the quick tutorial how to set it up, the new FreeNAS, how to find your ways around. In a second video, as I told you, I will do the snapshots and virtual machines. And yeah, that should be fun too. So if you find this information useful, definitely leave a comment, hit that like, hit subscribe button for more content. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. I will try to help you. Yeah, that's basically it. It was a longer one, but I hope you enjoyed this, and see you next time. Bye.